Hi there, welcome to this build of a 49-inch wingspan Diamond Demon. Now this is a lovely vintage model from the late 1930s and we're building it using a great set of plans from Ben Buckle. Now you can see we've got the main kind of building work done, if you like, the main skeleton of the plane completed, and you can see this lovely diamond shape in the fuselage. I really like this model. I've enjoyed building it and I love the look of it. But I'm at a stage now where I want to mock this up and determine where the natural CG is falling so that I can decide how far back I can put the servos and the battery, because I want to get it as far away from the ignition system up front, because we're going to be running this with a Bantam 19 spark ignition engine. And as part of that process of getting this ready so I can mock it up, I want to start doing some of the covering, because it will give me a better idea of where that natural CG is falling. So in this video I'm going to start the covering and I'm going to be working on the main wings, and then probably in another video, almost surely another video, I'm going to be doing the tail and the fin assembly. So I'll take the wings off this model now and we'll have a look at what we're going to be doing and how we're going to do it. Now I'm really keen to retain an old-fashioned look, something that would be in keeping perhaps with the 1930s when this model was designed. So I'm going to be covering it in Doculam first, which is a thin laminating film. I was going to use Mylar, but I had problems getting hold of it, so this is really thin Doculam, which is perhaps better because it's got the adhesive as part of it and it goes on quite nice. This is 38 micron Doculam, so it's the thinnest I've seen anyway. You may be able to get some thinner, but it is lovely and thin. And when you start off, this is just a practice piece I've been doing. I've been doing a lot of practicing with various bits and pieces. The Doculam starts off opaque like this, and as you stick it and heat it up, it goes clear. And this is a bit of an undercamber wing section that I made just to practice, like I say, just to get used to the Doculam. I mean, whether you've used Doculam before or any kind of covering film, it's always useful just to refresh yourself and remind yourself what temperatures and how it behaves. And once I've got the clear film on there, the Doculam, I'm going to be covering it in tissue, which is where we get that old nice look. And essentially the wings are going to be orange on the top surface and the bottom surface. I will leave a link in the description below to where I get the tissue from. It's really nice lightweight tissue. The whole wing on the top is going to be this orange and underneath, except for the front section on the top, which I am going to do in the blue. So I'm going to have a band like that along, and then I'm going to bring this down in kind of a diamond shape, or reminiscent of the diamond fuselage, to either side of where the fuselage starts here, and then on the fuselage I will continue that blue with a point, and the fuselage will be orange. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this Doculam fitted, and as I said, it seems a fairly nice process to use. It doesn't shrink really strong like you would expect with something like Oracover. It does shrink, it sticks well, it shrinks, but not hugely. So we need to try and get this as tight as possible. It does have a little bit of natural stretch to it before, you know, while you're putting it on. So we'll see how we get on with that, and hopefully that will go okay. Oh, one thing just very quickly, I put a little bit of beech on the inside of the wing here. I found the wings weren't balancing very well on the center line, So I just put a little bit of beech there, just a couple of grams to even that out, and that's nicely balanced now, just in case you see that and wonder what it is. So I will start to do the underside, just the same way I do a normal covering film, wrapping it round, and I'll do both sides and then I'll do the top. I won't shrink it until I've done the top and the bottom, and then I will try and shrink it evenly, not to introduce any kind of twist or warp. But it doesn't shrink that powerfully, as I said, so I don't think we're really at risk of warping it too much. But famous last words, we'll see. Now you've seen this this roll of Doculam is quite big. It's a relatively relatively cheap product. I paid about £18.50 sterling for that, which included the postage, and it's a 150 metre long roll, and I think it's 320 wide. So because it's a big roll meant to refill laminating machines, so it is a fairly cheap product. So if it all goes really ugly and we have to rip it off, it's not the end of the world, but hopefully we won't come to that. You can see I've been quite generous in cutting this. Shiny side up, and the glue is on the non-shiny side. Let me just get rid of that wing. Right, now I've got my iron, my Prolux digital iron, on a fairly low temperature. It's on about 107 degrees C. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tacking this at the bottom end, and then probably pull it tight along this spar and on the back there, and then once I've got it stuck around, I will then stick it to the under camber of the wings, and by doing that, that will put a little bit of tension into it, which I think we will find helpful. So one of the things is making sure you've got this nice and stable, and the more stable you've got it, the easier you'll find working with this, I think, or any material. Right, well you can see I've done the underside now, which is potentially the hardest bit, and hopefully if I get the light right on that, you can see that it's stuck to all those ribs, and if we turn it over we can see that as well. Now I haven't shrunk it yet, there are a few wrinkles, but I'm quite happy that it's not going to move for the moment anyway. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do this other side. Oh, the film here I left about 1 centimetre and then I just folded that down and I've stuck it on the underside of that rib. When I put the next piece on, I will come and I will just lap onto this, I think. I mean, this is the underside where the fuselage is, so if it looks perhaps not as neat as the rest of it, which it should do, that'll be fine. So I'm going to do the underside now, and hope that goes just as well. I think all these wrinkles that are in here will come out once we start shrinking it. But like I said, I'm going to get it all covered first before I start shrinking it. Right, I'm just finishing up the second underside, sticking the film onto the ribs. Now, what I would suggest is that you do a quick pass just with the tip and stick it down initially like that, and the least you can, or the less you can heat the surrounding film, the better. If you see there, it's only gone clear on a very small area. And now we've got that stuck down, I'm now going to go past and just make sure that it's stuck down by just going over it properly with the iron. But I find that initial tack quite useful just to get it stuck down, not particularly well, and then going over it and getting it down well. So I'm almost finished this second side, which has actually gone a little bit better than the first side. Right, I've now got the underside done on the left and right panel, and you can see it's all stuck down to that undercambered wing on both sides, and I'm really pleased with how it's gone on. It's looking really nice. I haven't shrunk it, I've just stuck it to the ribs, and we'll shrink it, as I said, once we've got the top on as well. What I have done though is I've shrunk it around the edge just to make sure it's nice and smooth, to give a good finish for the top to stick to. And because I'm sticking it to this trailing edge, the only overlap as we go down this wing is just on that very 1/8 thick back edge there, and on the front just on the leading edge. Nothing is overlapping onto the actual open structure itself. You see I shrunk a little bit there, and when I put the second piece on I cut a nice straight edge and I just overlapped it onto what was there already by a 1/4 of an inch, 6 mil, something like that, and stuck it to that central rib. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just waiting for my iron to cool down a little bit, and then I'm going to put the film on the top. And incidentally, I started on 105 degrees and then I went up to 115, and I found that was really nice for just tacking it on but not shrinking it too much. When I wanted to shrink it on these edges, I took it up to about 140 degrees, so, and that worked nicely. And when I come to shrink it, I probably will try at quite a low temperature and see how that goes, and just increase it, because I don't want to get it too hot and shrink it too much if I can help it, just enough, because the more you shrink it, the more it pulls on the wing and the more risk you've got of a twist. But this is looking good at the moment anyway. So I'll get that top surface done. Well, I've now got the Doculam on the wing top and bottom. Now the bottom, despite the undercamber, was the easiest surface to do. I've got a few wrinkles along this leading edge here which I'm hoping will shrink out, and this central section was really difficult because of the angles and the stretch. I ended up putting a separate panel in there, just in that front piece. But to be honest, I don't think that will be a problem, because it's very, very thin film and you iron it down and the seams just disappear. There's a few wrinkles in this tip as well, but I'm going to start shrinking it down now, and we'll see how it goes. Well, this is coming along nicely now, and I've done the central section, top and bottom, and it's coming on really well. There was a little bit of a stressful time around here because I thought there was some wrinkles I weren't going to get out. My advice with Doculam, I don't have a huge experience with it, but the experience I do have, I would suggest that it does shrink with heat, obviously, but it also shrinks as it cools down. So if you're trying to get out of a particularly nasty persistent wrinkle, just work the wrinkle with your tip, get it nice and hot, shrink it as you can, take your iron off and just watch it, and you'll see how as it cools it tightens up. So just thought I'd make that point, that it's not all about the heat, it is about how it cools off as well. And you can see, I mean, this is doing lovely here, where I managed to get it nice and tight over the ribs, and just brushing over this lightly. There's no point in, if it gets all the wrinkles out, there's no point in dwelling on it. We will end up with some very light wrinkles, but we are going to put tissue on top of this, so I don't think we should stress too much about that. I may change my mind once I've got the tissue on. With the undercamber here, I'm trying to go as light and as quick as possible where it's already stuck to the ribs, because I don't want to heat that up and unstick it. So I'm just going as quick as I can and getting those wrinkles out. But to be honest, this is quite nice and tight here, so it's doing quite well. Well, I've now got it finished, and I'm really pleased because it's gone on really nice, and I've managed to get nearly all of the wrinkles out. I think there's just a very slight bit of a wrinkle there, and another little one on the tip, but it's still stuck on the undercamber. I don't know whether that shows up or whether it's a bit reflecting the light a bit too much, but good to get it done. And I've included some of the high-speed film and just some little comments, but I am very concerned about keeping these videos so they're not too long, and there's quite a lot involved in covering this. So I'm going to draw this video to a close now, but I hope you found this useful and interesting, and see what a good product this is, this Doculam, and at such a cheap price as well. But the proof is in the pudding, so we'll see how it goes in the next video when we start putting the tissue on. Hopefully that will go on just as well as this Doculam. So thanks very much for watching, and please come back and see how we get on in the next video covering this with tissue.